Let's touch base with Andrew Holland of Avendus to chat a bit about more on his perspective that he has for the markets. Andrew, hi, welcome to the show. Emerging markets will outperform developing markets in 2019. Now, what makes you say that amid so much chaos, so much uncertainty with regard to macros as well as micros? And how do you see India stand amid all that?
So the reason I'm saying that that emerging markets will do well this year, well, first of all, last year they fell between 5 to 30%, so a lot of the damage was done. But I think there's a race to the bottom at the moment in terms of global economies, whether it's the US, China, or Europe, and the UK as well, of who's going to hit recession first. So I think that's going to play in our minds for the next few quarters. And whilst obviously that's not great, I think it's a developed market problem in terms of earnings growth there. So I think there's value in emerging markets, and I think that's what will play through. Now, in terms of India, a lot depends on whether we had continue with the trade war with China or not. If not, then obviously, in the short term, you're going to see a spike up in commodity prices. So we'd be a lagging performer in that scenario. And actually, if you look from year to date, I know it's a very short period from the beginning of the year, but we have underperformed other emerging markets, which would be a beneficiary if there's no trade war in terms of their exports, and India is not a big exporter. So relatively we might underperform in that scenario. Obviously we get dragged up as we are now, whereas if there is a trade war, then obviously we'll be seen more as a defensive emerging market in terms of we're a domestic driven economy. So even though we may fall along with global markets, we would fall less than other emerging markets, and then you start to see investors coming back to India.
Hi Andrew, good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. You've set the stage when we talk about India versus EMs and globally as well. But if I were to get specific, we're also, the earnings season has started. You've seen a couple of big counters that have come out with their results. What do you make of the earnings season so far? Do you think there is a case for maybe re-rating a couple of the stocks?
Yeah, I think the market's actually doing that already. Reliance results were a little bit better than investors expected, and analysts as well, and therefore you've seen a re-rating. I mean, obviously there's a little bit more sexy valuation going towards their Amazon type retail operations going forward, and obviously Geo is just continues to take market share from everybody else. So I think that's what's exciting the market there. It's the other parts of Reliance which is being benefiting the re-rating there, and we're seeing that across some of the larger banks as well, where you've seen pretty good results. Thereafter I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for some sectors like the auto sector. I think we're going to see some big downgrades coming there in the auto sector, which I think is now a structural sell. I think there's a real problem for the auto sector going forward.
Okay, Andrew, unfortunately we are running out of time, so I'm going to have to leave it at that. Many thanks for joining us here on Markets at Lunch with your views on the markets at large.
Pleasure.
And of course the earnings season, which is of course as always a very important trigger.